This is the Marketing Made Easy for HR Consultants podcast, a show to help independent UK-based HR consultants get a pipeline of perfect fit, high-paying clients without expensive adverts, time-consuming social media activities, or energy-sapping and monotonous networking meetings. I'm your host, Nick Paninsky, author of How to Land Your Dream Client, a book which explains everything you need to know to get every sale and client you ever want. And if that sounds interesting, then make sure to grab your copy from the influential consultant website today. That being said, let's get into today's show. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Marketing Made Easy for HR Consultants with me, Nick Paninsky. Today's episode is the third episode in the series about using video to market yourself and your HR consultancy. Now, we've talked about why you should be using video. We've talked about what might be holding you back. This week, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. In fact, we're going to dive really deep into the tech and the setup. We're going to make it super simple so that there's none of those concerns are going to hold you back from creating that content that gets you in front of your clients, in front of your leads, and helps you build your 70K HR consultancy. Now, the main message that I want you to take away from this episode is if you can unlock your phone, you can film a client-winning video. It really is that simple. Let me share with you, no one's asking for Netflix quality production. And that's what this episode is all about. It's about stripping away those excuses that you might have and really simplifying the process. Now, your phone, it likely shoots in 4K, and that's more than good enough to create the content that you need to get leads, clients, sales, and profits. In fact, at the time of recording, 28 years later is in the cinemas, and a lot of that film was recorded with an iPhone. Yes, you heard me correctly. A lot of that film was recorded with an iPhone. Now, obviously, they used a hell of a lot of tech to make sure that the lighting was right and whatever else, because they're filming on location, it's actors, they got a big budget, etc., etc. But the camera that they used was on the iPhone. And so if the iPhone was good enough for 28 years later, it's definitely good enough for me and you. Equally, and importantly, no prospect is saying to themselves, oh, I would have hired her, but that video that she shared wasn't filmed with a DSLR. No one's saying that. In fact, high production values can even work against you. It can reduce trust because it looks like an advert. It looks too polished. It looks too professional. A lot of people out there, a lot of the leads and the clients that you want, they're looking for real people to work alongside. They're not looking for Hollywood quality content. They accept that real people film with real cameras, real phones. It's good enough for them. It's good enough for you. And at the end of the day, you're not filming a film. You're not filming a promo. You're building a relationship. So what I want you to understand is it's not about how good the video looks. It's about how real and useful it feels. It's about how you come across. It's about the message that you share. Now, we will talk about the content that you need to create in next week's episode, but today is all about the tech. So let's get into that essential kit. Let's get that checklist of all the stuff that you need to create the best looking content possible. First up, you want to make sure that you've got an up-to-date phone. So for me, I've got a Google Pixel 8a. It's more than good enough. For you, honestly, whatever you're packing, it's probably good enough. If you've got an iPhone, it's probably good enough. If you've got, doing a bit of research, I would say that iPhone 11 upwards, that's more than likely good enough. That would create 4K video. Equally, Google Pixel 5, Galaxy S20, these are all good enough to create 4K quality content. So if you've got any of those phones or better, then you're absolutely fine. Next thing you want to be thinking about is light. Now, ideally, natural light is best. So facing a window would be the best solution for this. Alternatively, you can go outside. So rather than facing a window, you can just go outside into the actual sunlight. The reason for this is that, well, obviously, people have got to be able to see your face when you're filming content. And that's what natural light really helps with. With a natural light, your face is much more easier to be seen. The next thing you want to think about is a quiet room, because, yeah, people want to be able to hear what you're saying. That background noise of plates being moved around or whatever, if you're in some sort of cafe, that's not great. Alternatively, if you're at home and you've got kids shouting in the background, again, not great. But a nice quiet room where it's just you and you on your own, that's absolutely perfect. Absolutely fine. You don't need to think too much more about it. The next thing that you might be thinking about is a tripod. This is really useful. It's not essential, but it is really useful because it holds your camera in place and you can adjust the height setting so that it is filming at the right height. Now, we're going to go into this in a little bit more detail shortly, but filming at the right height is really important. If you haven't got a tripod or you just don't want to invest in one, get a stack of books, get some blue tack, the idea is you can do. That's absolutely fine. The idea is that you should be filming at the right height, though. And a tripod, that's the best and easiest solution. Now, the optional things that you could include would be a ring light. If you haven't got a room facing a window or you don't want to go outside, then a ring light can work just as well. But it's not as good as natural light. So, you can use a ring light. That's a good option. Don't try and use the flash on the back of a camera. It just doesn't work as well. The ring light works really well because it creates light from every angle. If you were thinking about it, then you might want to include a lapel mic, but it's not that important. Honestly, the microphone on your phone is absolutely fine. I guess the main thing that I want you to take away is if you can make a video call, you can film a video. At the end of the day, you're not in a film studio. You're in your spare room with a half-drunk coffee behind the laptop. That's real life, and it's good enough. Now, in terms of the framing, the light, and the sound, these are your 3-second upgrades. These are the simple tweaks that you can make to make sure that the content you're creating sounds as good as possible. Obviously, I alluded to this a second ago when I was talking about a tripod, but an eye-level lens is essential stuff. People don't want to be looking up your nose, and people don't want to be, being looked down upon. So if you're looking down at the camera, that makes people feel like they're looking up to you. Not a great relationship building situation. So eye-level lens is the ideal situation. Just like you'd be talking to a normal person, it would be at eye level. You want the exact same thing when you're creating your content. Next up, you want to consider sitting and facing the window. Again, we've talked about this. The natural light is the best way for your face to be seen, and faces are important. We trust people. As an aside, this is one of the key reasons what I talk about when I say about sharing testimonials on your website. Make sure to have a picture of the person because this builds trust. We like to see people's faces. It's the same reason why everyone tells you to put a picture, a selfie on your LinkedIn posts. When you're sharing those posts, people like to be able to see people. So with going back to recording the content, when you sit facing the window, that is the best way possible for people to be able to see your face when you're creating your content. Equally, you might want to consider turning off any overhead lights if it casts a shadow. This is especially important for those of us who are follically challenged, or AKA for those of us who are bold, because that overhead light, that is going to hit the top of our heads and that's going to shine onto the camera. Obviously not going to be blinding people, but it doesn't make the best looking videos. And it's the same for you. You might not be bold. You're probably not bold. But it is that light is going to bounce off your hair, and it just doesn't create the best looking content. Equally, as I say, it casts shadows. So your nose will cast a shadow over your face and whatever else. So no overhead lights. Equally, no underhead lights. You're not filming some sort of ghost story for a bunch of campers. As we talked about earlier, make sure to close doors and you're on your own in a room so that there's no background noise. That way people can hear you, what you're saying. And I don't know if you know this tip, but soft furnishings help sound quality. So echo chambers like kitchens or hallways, with a tiled floor or whatever, that makes the sound feel awkward. What you want instead would be, as I say, soft furnishing. So maybe there's a sofa, maybe you want to put some towels down, whatever. You don't want the sound echoing around. You want the sound clear and easy to understand. Now, an easy solution for this would be something like the AirPods, or again, a lapel mic. These can reduce background hiss, but they're really not essential. As I say, if your phone is good enough for you to be able to make video calls, it's absolutely good enough for you to be able to create content for your HR consultancy so that you can get more leads, clients, and sales. Now, when it comes to actually recording your videos, I would suggest recording in a horizontal fashion. The reason for this is that you can then put these videos onto YouTube, because YouTube is set up on a horizontal. Equally, when it comes to sharing your content on LinkedIn, LinkedIn prefers squares or horizontal. If you are thinking to do something for Reels or Shorts or TikTok for whatever reason, because your audience is there, and that's the only reason why you should be on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, because that's where your audience hangs out, then you might want to consider filming vertically. Those platforms are more geared for people scrolling using their phones. So that's why you want to film in a vertical way. But again, unless your audience is on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, then I would question why you're actually creating content for those platforms. It sounds like, yeah, you might want to share all of your content all in one place, all in a few places. And I get that. That absolutely makes sense. You know, if you've got a social media planner of some form, then you can upload it and then you can share it to all the platforms all at once. I get that. That kind of makes sense. But again, you know, I would say, what is the point? If someone's going to stumble across your content on the other platforms and no one likes it, no one engages with it, then you are going to look very unpopular, which damages your credibility. That is not what we're looking for. That's the opposite of what we're looking for. Equally, if you share your content all over these different social media platforms, that's somewhere where you then have to go and manage those social media content, right? So if somebody comments on something, for instance, it is your job to then go and engage with those people. Now, if you are sharing your content all over the place, that's a lot of places for you to manage content. To get around this, you can have a pinned post to the top of whatever platform it is saying, listen, I share content here, but I never engage here. So if you ever want to get in touch with me, head over to website or whatever. Or I'm more active on LinkedIn or YouTube or whatever. So that is a way of getting around it. But personally, again, I mean, for me, I would say just concentrate on one platform. If it's LinkedIn, great, concentrate on there. The next thing to consider is about how long you're actually going to spend recording your content, right? Because this can take so long if you let it. You're going to end up creating lots and lots of retakes. Now, mistakes are human. So if you're doing a few ums, a few ahs, etc., it's not great, but AI can take care of a lot of that and it can remove all that for you. What I would suggest in terms of recording the content, the best thing that you might want to consider is saying to ChatGPT, hey, I want to create content around this topic. These are the points that I want to discuss. Anything else that you could suggest? What would you suggest that I create? What would you suggest that I talk about? Please give me a list now. It will give you some bullet points. Then you can then go and record that content using those bullet points. What you can do after that is take the transcript, throw it back at ChatGPT. This is something I do, and say, review this. Is this content good enough, or should I re-record with some points? Then LinkedIn, then ChatGPT will tell you whether or not that content was good enough, whether or not you need to re-record it. A lot of the times it will be good enough. If you need to re-record it, then you've got an idea from ChatGPT what it is that you need to include, what it is that you need to skip out. So that means that you don't need to do endless retakes. You just need to do a few bits of tweaking here and there. One of the apps that you might want to consider using is something called CapCut, because this can make things really simple for you when it comes to editing. Personally, I don't use that. I use Loom. Same, but a bit different. But Loom for me, I can record on my phone, I can upload it into Loom and then make all the changes. Alternatively, I can just record straight from my laptop using Loom and then make the edits in Loom. When it comes to actually recording the content, some people feel overwhelmed. The simple solution that I've got for you is to imagine that you are speaking to one person. Imagine that person in your mind, whoever it is, your favorite client. Imagine that you are talking to them and talk to them as if they are in the room and they're on the other side of the camera. And that way you'll come across natural, you'll come across friendly, because you will have that person in mind. You will talk to them as if they're right in front of you. A key point that I want you to take away is that content that's real, and has a few mistakes here and there, that's always going to beat content that's been retaken 12, 13, 14 times and then never posted. So get to work, create that content, do your best, and honestly, the perfection will come with time. The first few times that you do your videos, they might be a little bit ropey, but guess what? Where you start is not where you end up. So when you're creating your content and it doesn't feel awesome, post it anyway. Get better over time. No one's going to be judging you as much as you think they're going to be. Now, when it comes to actually recording your content, you won't be surprised to hear me say that you need to schedule some time in your diary. If you've heard me on any podcast before, you'll know I talk about this, how it's so important to getting things actually done. Because if you say that you'll do it sometime or at some point, then there's no definite plan there. There's no commitment. And what will happen is, more than likely, you won't end up doing it. If instead you schedule some time, let's say, for an example, an hour on let's say Monday afternoon, an hour when you know you're going to create your video content for the week or for the next 2 weeks, whatever it is. Because that time is in your diary, that means, you've scheduled some time for it. And that means that you should turn up and create your content. It's way more likely to happen that you are going to create your content if you schedule when it's going to happen. And especially if it's in every Monday at the exact same time, you know that you have an appointment called camera time or whatever it is that you want to call it, where you are going to turn up and create the content to drive your business forward and get you leads, clients, sales, and profits. The more that you treat this appointment like a doctor's appointment, the more likely you are to turn up and get it done. So schedule some time in your diary, turn up, create the content, get it done, get it out there. Job done. And that's it. That's today's show. That's everything that you need to know about the tech and the setup to get yourself creating the content to publicize your HR consultancy. So to remind ourselves, here's what we've talked about. We've talked about the fact that your phone is more than likely good enough for you to be able to create content that's going to publicize and market your HR consultancy so that you get more leads, client sales, and profits. We've talked about the fact that you should be filming in front of a natural light in a quiet room where no one's going to be disturbing you and there's none of that background noise affecting things. We've talked about making sure that you're eye level with the camera. We've talked about filming in a horizontal style. We've talked about using ChatGPT to help you create the content, but also to review the content that you've created and make sure that it's as good as it could possibly be and whether or not you need to retake it. And then we've talked about scheduling time in your diary to make sure that you actually create the content that you need. Now, before I go, I've talked about the fact in the last few episodes that I'll be embarking on my own 14-day video challenge. I'll soon be sharing some information with you about how you can do your own 14-day video challenge. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, as ever, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. And of course, get marketing, because without marketing, there's no sales. And without sales, there's no business. So get marketing. Hey there, and thanks for listening to the Marketing Made Easy for HR Consultants podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, then please consider taking a minute to help us grow by sharing the episode with a friend or colleague, or by leaving a positive review on podchaser.com. And make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming episodes if you haven't done so already. I've been your host, Nick Paninsky, and if you've got any questions or you want to know more about today's topic, then feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be delighted to hear from you. See you next time.